G'day and welcome to Insights and Storytellings with me, Moon Willow. As always, it's an honour and privilege to have your energies combine with mine to do these stories. I'm really uncertain as to why I am attempting to do this today because I have nothing but the need or the desire to come on and just speak and see where the flow takes us today. It's been feeling a little bit gluggy today and difficult to focus. I'm finding it feels like we're sort of coming back into sort of that more oppressive state, and difficult to rise above that. And I think that's part of the reason why I've popped on to try and explore this and see where the crystals and the cards take us. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to go straight into the crystals today and see what comes out for us all. So we've got green aventurine, so the heart, and really focusing in on our heart center. And I think that's part of it when we're feeling overwhelmed or stuck, or it feels like walking through sludge, that we can invariably or inadvertently give ourselves a hard time, that we're not doing enough, that we're not participating enough, that we're not pushing through enough, that we got caught up in the lower energies again, and we can have that negative feel around it. So for me, the green aventurine at the moment is very much about having that compassionate understanding that we are doing the best that we can in really bizarre circumstances. We're living in a very weird world at the moment with a lot of pressure, with a lot of stress, if we choose to step into it. And it's very hard not to. It's very hard not to trip up or end up in darker spaces. And we can lose our heart center in that. So very much the green aventurine is sort of reminding us to have that compassionate and loving understanding of ourselves, and let ourselves off the hook, as it were, and really trying to remind us to focus on those things that bring us joy and stimulate our heart center, and be more loving towards ourselves and other people. And again, we're going to, at the moment, more so than ever, I guess, come across very different opinions or different readings of the situation. And that polarization could cause a rip within our heart center, and can produce sort of like this troubled feeling of not sure how to progress forward, how to hold love to others around us that may hold a different viewpoint. And really focusing in that we're all of us are doing the best we can, and having that compassionate love towards ourselves and others makes that slightly easier to progress forward. And recognizing that we're not in isolation and we're not alone through what we're experiencing and the difficulties that produces in trying to move forward. So yeah, the green aventurine is very much about remembering to have compassion towards ourselves and others, sort of living through sort of a dark and difficult time, and not getting caught in the fear or the darkness, but trying to bring a lighter aspect to it for all of us. So I'll see what cards come out and see which way the story goes for us. Keep getting my hair caught when I shuffle. Draw back a long hair, I guess. So the three cards are the heart, the ring, and the fish. So heart and heart. It is really coming into our heart space, into our heart center, and really allowing ourselves the time and the space to find out what our hearts truly desire. And I recognize at the moment that is not very easy. That can be quite difficult at the minute, because it's like our hearts are torn in so many different places and to so many different ways that it's hard to get that center. And it may be that at one moment you're feeling that your heart is trying to say one thing, and then in the next breath it's saying something else. And as we're living through a lot of restrictions and conditions and sort of rules and regulations that we may not have agreed to, it's very difficult to hear our hearts within that. It's sort of almost back in that storm, and the wind is really throwing us about, throwing all sorts of different ideas about, and it's like, it's almost like we're being pressurized into getting our hearts to believe a certain thing that sort of doesn't feel like it fits. And if we don't give ourselves the space to truly hear what our hearts are saying, we end up following a path that takes us off course sometimes. So my feel around this is very much about trying to find that space to go within, to really hold heart-centeredness and listen to what our hearts are trying to say, trying to give it space to be heard, but not from a critical space. It's not about being critical of what the heart's saying either. That there is, it may be sort of like the initial defense mechanism of what you're hearing to start off with, and that can create a response that may not be beneficial, may not be healing. So it's trying to witness from a compassionate space of understanding, to truly hear what it is your heart wants to say to you and how it's feeling, and really spending some time with it to notice whether it's feeling joyful or hurt or lost, whether it's crying out to be nourished, to be held, soothed, really giving space for our heart to be heard. Then that brings me into the ring, so partnership. And as I was saying yesterday, it's very much partnership with ourselves. I feel that in our society that very little credence or very little support is given to being in line with ourselves, to be in partnership with ourselves, and to really listen. And that partnership as well for me is always a partnership with the earth that we stand on. We need to have that internal partnership with our heart so that we can hear our heart, because it's less inclined to get hurt along the way if we truly understand it, if we understand the hurts of the past, and what that's taught us, how that's brought us to where we are today, and how that could be informing how we're walking forward, how we're moving forward. The heart is not a separate entity. The heart is very much a part of us. It is the heart of ourselves. And unless we have a true partnership with our hearts, we're not going to hear properly. We're not going to be able to be in that now moment, because more often than not, we're repeating patterns from the past, or we're reacting to things in the present that are based on the history of the past. So it is really important at the moment to just take that time and energy to really focus into our heart space and have a dialogue, a compassionate dialogue with our heart and previous woundings and the previous joys that may not have remained. There is a couple of sayings. It's like heart sore and heart sore and soul weary spring to mind, and they seem to be interconnected. But so it is important to listen and have that clear partnership, which brings me into the last card, which is the fish. And that for me is energy. So if we're not listening to the heart, or we're trying to ignore our hearts, that takes up a lot of extra energy. And the more we hear and the more we free up, the more energy we have to navigate and negotiate what's going off around us. And we need all the extra energy we can get at the moment. It really feels like it. And there is a lot of pressure around our hearts at the moment, that we get told that if we don't follow certain things, that we're going to put other people's hearts at risk, or we're going to hurt other people. And it's very difficult to hold us in that. So very much looking at what our heart's true desire is, where we're heart sore, how can we heal that? And it may be just a case of listening, having that true partnership within, so that our partnerships without can be clearer and more authentic. And it is about that authenticity. And the more we listen, the more we free up our energy, the more energy will come back in. Because any energy that's coming in at the moment, if we're trying to ignore aspects, will be used to block or close off or keep down that aspect of ourselves. So the more we listen, the more we hear, the more we allow it to bubble up to the surface, the more energy we have. And the more we know what brings joy to our hearts, what makes our hearts sing, our soul sing, the more we attract that into us, and that gives us more energy. So it is a cycle, and it can be a cycle of fulfillment and increased energy if we're willing to hear hear ourselves clearly, and as I say, with compassion, always with compassion, and just enable ourselves to be present, to be okay with ourselves, to be our authentic selves, being aware that it's not all good, it's not all bad, it just is. That the stories that our hearts hold have been valuable lessons to bring us to who we are today. And part of what today is about is learning how to love ourselves completely and compassionately and fully, with an awareness that we can't go back and change the past, but we can integrate that and have that integration. And the more open we are with ourselves, the more open we can be with other people, but the more open we are with the earth underneath our feet, which will continue to give us extra energy, the more open we can be with source energy and our higher self, so more energy comes in that way. So we will be able to access the full abundance of the world that we live in, and be able to share that with other people, and continue to grow from a heart place, from a heart-centeredness. So it's a short one today, and I'm hoping that makes sense, and I'm hoping that's resonating out there for somebody. I'm just going to see what sound comes through for us today, for our hearts. Thank you very much for joining me. I do appreciate it. I don't know when I'll be back on, but in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Love you all. Bye for now.